Week 16 is here. We only have a few more weeks in the regular season, so we got to make it count. We're going to do what we always do here on Sunday mornings, our final takes video. We'll look at projections and the ownership according to stochastic data. Of course, one of the industry leaders. We're going to hop into the world of the solver, see what ETR thinks are some of the top projected lineups, as well as some of the top sim lineups. We're going to also sim some lineups on stochastic, look at all the main QBs today. It's your final takes video, guys. Let's get into it. I have the source of sore throats right now, so bear with me. Pushing through here, but if I do sound even worse than usual, it's going to be the case today. Let's highlight just the main slate. Shout out to the chat as well. See a bunch of you guys waiting for the stream to start, and I do appreciate here on a Sunday. Spent yesterday walking around looking at Christmas lights with a sore throat, and then my wife, as my child and I are so fatigued of looking at the stuff, she got to look at some more light. So it was a great day yesterday, great day today here. Christian Watson day would be odd given that he doesn't play today, but sure, that could be today. Let's win a milli. Let's pay a pimp and win a milli indeed. Let's get it going, guys. Bang your kettle drums. That's more of an NBA video thing, but yes. Josh Allen, your top picked player in the slate. Josh Allen, apparently, according to Ian Rappaport, been playing with a broken hand, a left hand that is not his throwing hand for most of the year. What he's been doing is very impressive. The big question today is, does he have to do enough against New England to put up the kind of point totals he has lately? Really key matchups he's had lately versus good offenses, teams like Detroit last week, teams like the Rams. He's had the big upside there. Versus New England, a team that might even be firing their coach at the end of the year if the team doesn't show some life. So that's sort of the big question you have to have. Josh Allen at almost a $9K salary, your top projected player. If you have him in best ball, you're probably feeling good about it. If you have him in DFS, you're spending a lot of money on a guy that might not hit that incredible ceiling he's had lately. It's hard to expect it today, if it ever was easy to expect it. Jahmyr Gibbs, $7,500 salary for him. Of course, he was the man in the thumbnail on the Friday video. Looks still chalky today. Looks like the ownership has started to kind of coalesce around a couple guys, including Jahmyr Gibbs, we talked about on Friday. That was already obvious. James Conner, I thought, was a little bit low owned on Friday. He's now looking like one of the chalk plays in the week, part of why his face is on the thumbnail today. Probably going to see a lot of Gibbs, James Conner backfields today, be my guess. Two teams here, decent favorites, Detroit in their spot against Chicago. Where are we at? Of course, I had to reload Excel, so that means it's not searching for names. It's searching in formulas. Detroit's total this week, 27.3 implied, 0.7 point favorite against Chicago. For Arizona side, not quite as big of a favorite. They are now up to a 5-point favorite. They were 4 earlier in the week, heading into Carolina. So those are guys, obvious game scripts favoring the RB on paper. Doesn't mean these guys hit enough to have that tournament ceiling. It does mean that on their face, probably Jahmyr Gibbs, James Conner, two of the plays you're going to want the most, look like two of the best plays on the slate. Jamar Chase at number 3 versus Cleveland. Again, the big question here, much like Josh Allen to me, does Cleveland push enough on their side to get the kind of production you need? Cincinnati, one of the highest pass rate or expectation leagues in the teams in the league, but still a situation for them where if they are ahead, you have Chase Brown there, who's been basically the best RB. His workload, according to some people out there, I think Fantasy Points data had it, he's basically had one of the best workloads in football in the last 4 or 5 years or so, based on what he's been getting since Zach Moss went out. So you have some obvious ways to go around Jamar Chase, including the guy projected right behind him, Chase Brown. So Jamar Chase could certainly go off here. T. Higgins going to be playing. You're not getting the target concentration that would give you maybe more of an impetus to play him. I think Jamar Chase, a fine play on the slate, but not a priority one. It's because Dorian Thompson-Robinson for Cleveland, really not a pro-level QB, and he's going to be the one playing QB for them today. It's not a Jameis week. Chase Brown, just talked about him through the prism of Jamar Chase. If you're not getting James Conner, you're not getting Jahmyr Gibbs, you're probably looking at Chase Brown. Price tags come up from a little bit. If you are going to be price sensitive, we are kind of at a price point ceiling. You are close to a price point ceiling for James Conner as well. You're at the same price that Jahmyr Gibbs has basically been this entire year. I don't think they priced in enough that David Montgomery is going to be out for maybe the year, if not most of the year, with him rehabbing his MCL injury. For Chase Brown at $7,700, though, good play. Just if you are being price sensitive, we are now paying the steepest of price tags for Chase Brown. Puka Nacua, 8K salary versus the Jets. I think this game's talked about on Friday, in particular on the premium video. Feel like this game's going to get targeted a lot as a shootout. I don't think you're being sneaky going here. The ownership, still a good amount for really both sides of the equation here. Jets expected to have about 12% ownership. Honestly, they lowered the ownership on Stochastic, it looks like, from Friday. Now seeing Devontae Adams at 11 and change, Jeremy Ruckert at almost 10, Aaron Rodgers at 5, which is a lot for Aaron Rodgers, but not a crazy amount. Garrett Wilson at 6. Not buying that ownership for the Jets. I think people chase it a little bit more after they just went off last week in the nut spot against Jacksonville. I would say for the Jets here and for Puka Nacua through that prism, I think this game just gets higher owned than it is. Puka Nacua projected for 12% ownership. Not quite sold on that. I think Cooper Kupp's probably the most appealing play overall, just relative to not a ton of ownership expected at a $6,500 salary. But really, this game to me, Jets-Rams, I think people target it more than they probably should. But honestly, stochastic ownership not backing me up on that as much as I would have thought. It still perform with a broken lefty. There you go. I appreciate the sentiment. Do they factor weather in? Maybe Vegas score dipped. No, the Vegas score hasn't moved at all. Puka Nacua, anyway, okay play. Not really an issue with it, but I just think, again, watch out for this game being overowned. If you are trying to game stack it, I just don't think it's sneaky, but I'm sure somebody will feel differently out there. QBs, let's look at these guys up top. Actually, let's look at top values first before we do that. As of Friday, there were no really noteworthy values here in terms of cheap guys you want to get. Only QBs. Looks like that's mostly still the case here. Michael Penix, there's a tweet out there floating around that somebody saw Michael Penix out of Publix and was like, hey, man, what are you going to do? And apparently he said 300 yards and 2 touchdowns, which I don't know that a football player would say that. Maybe a rookie getting his first start. Maybe he would. I don't think that's true, though. I wouldn't hold any weight to it. The main thing to hold in here for Michael Penix is that Atlanta total has been pretty high throughout the week. It's actually moved up a little bit, I think. No, it was at 26. Now it's at 25.8. So moved down a little, but still Michael Penix, guy who in college at UW created really great production for Rome Odunze, for Jalen McMillan, Jalen Polk as well. All those guys look good, really efficient in terms of the EPA metrics that I swear by from Sports Info Solutions. All those guys were really great in college, and it was, I think, the Ryan Grubb offense in large part. We're seeing that Ryan Grubb offense in Seattle, and not everybody's getting there. DK Metcalf, frankly, having one of the worst years he's had in his career, especially this last month or so. I don't think you want to give all the credit to Ryan Grubb. Like if you want to split the credit, you could say Michael Penix a big part of that, kind of aggressively forcing downfield balls. He wasn't the most accurate passer, like the catchable ball rate for him. It wasn't that much above average compared to some of the other guys that we liked a lot last year. CJ Stroud being one that obviously his rookie year looked great, this year a little bit less so. Michael Penix at 4,500 is the main thing to me. When you have a decent total, you're playing the Giants. I think in particular, a willfulness here to get Michael Penix going. They're probably going to want to keep him from taking too much risk here because he is a guy I think that in the pros probably going to have a little bit of an issue with turnovers. He's got some Jameis in him is really the main thing. Like he drops back really aggressively, can create a lot of production, but some inaccuracy stuff I think is there in college. Also, just like a little bit too willful of a deep ball thrower, which if he gets into trouble in the pros, like that's going to kind of compound upon itself. But at 4,500 in a debut game, when you're getting almost 26 implied points, I think Penix is a really strong play. So I don't think he's going to get a ton of ownership, but we'll see what it looks like in a little bit. If it's under 10%, I think you want to be with it. If it were like 20, then we're probably talking about too much Penix. You're getting too much Penix deep inside. Anthony Richardson at number 2, 3.6x value for him playing Tennessee. Game where theoretically he should be in a competitive spot throughout. Tennessee's defense good enough to maybe inhibit production. Also, the stack partners for AR, not the most obvious. Josh Downs would be the most appealing to me, but it's not a sure thing by any stretch. So AR is another value play. If you don't want to pay all the way down for Penix, you don't want to get that cheap Penix for yourself. I feel like we just got to get them all the way. Bonk, yes, we'll play the GIF. I think anytime you talk Michael Penix, I feel like the bonks just come naturally. That's the money time. It's money time here when you talk about Michael Penix. But yeah, that's basically it for Michael Penix. Not a runner, that's true. Definitely gonna be more mobile than Kirk Cousins, and I think you might get him running 3-4 times a game in the pros, just because he's gonna have to a little bit. He's gonna be smart about it, but yeah, for AR, you're getting more mobility there, a little more settled guy in an offense. You're paying $900 more, so that's a trade-off. Aiden O'Connell, 5,100 for him. He's facing Jacksonville. I could take the shot. Aiden O'Connell's looked pretty good so far in the Scott Turner offense for the Raiders. Honestly, I think overall the offense, even though it looked really bad with Desmond Ridder last week, since they changed offensive coordinators, has been a lot better for the Raiders situation overall. You're now getting this nut matchup versus Jacksonville, a team that we talk about targeting every single week. Pretty much every piece of content I've done, the fantasy points column I do every week, we've targeted Jacksonville so much this year, and it's been one of the best spots to kind of go against. The issue is, like, again, people know that if you go to the DraftKings app, you look at DVP, Jacksonville's going to also look awful, but EPA metrics, like really one of the worst teams I think we've seen in the NFL, at least in the last 3-4 years that I've been regularly tracking the stuff using Sports Info Solutions data. 0.2 EPA per dropback allowed, which is crazy high, highest mark in the league. 0.22 EPA per pass allowed, one of the highest marks in the league, and again, probably one of the highest I've seen in the last 4 years. 0.05 EPA per, especially this time of year too. Like Broncos were bad in the beginning of the year, things stabilized for them. I think they got a little bit lucky when they got there. This year now they're good to go. But Jacksonville, like, it just gets worse. Slash stays flat every week. Total doesn't really support going to Vegas a ton, but 22 implied points for Vegas, higher than they normally get. So I think Aiden O'Connell, like these three guys, they all have different merits, but I think all equally valid merits. I do wonder because of how easy it is to get these guys. And again, like sometimes you have to ask yourself, even somebody like me who does tend to think a little more contrarian and does originate most of the takes I'm not watching content and then coming up with my stuff off of that, like a lot of people out there are. I think that for Penix, Richardson, Aiden O'Connell, I don't know that there's been the most industry chatter this week based on some of the stuff I saw, but I think they might get owned a little bit because it's so easy to pay down for these guys. Make yourself a case for it. Like O'Connell, last time he played, I believe had 300 passing yards, or at least one of the games he's played has taken over. You have targets you like on the Raiders as well, where people love playing Jacoby Myers. People love playing Brock Bowers, even though Bowers' price tag's pretty high. I think that's sort of where you get maybe more ownership coming for Penix, O'Connell, maybe less for AR, but I think there's going to be a lot of people paying down here under 5,500. So really the biggest bull case, I think, for Josh Allen would be you're getting so off the beaten path of salary that if there is 25, 30% of the field that's on these three guys, you're getting away from a third of the field, taking a QB that's going to very easily, most likely score more points than them, even though the ceiling could be a little bit lower in that New England spot. There is a real, I think, game theory logic to playing the expensive QBs this week. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, out of all the cheap guys, I don't like him the most. That said, you're not getting Tillman again. Worst concussion of the year, it seems like, for Cedric Tillman, maybe besides a 2-1. That said, for them, DTR is not a guy I believe in. Talked about some of the numbers last week, but really inaccurate QB so far. 44% catchable ball rate. We're talking about worse than AR in a small sample size, or a smaller sample size for DTR. Under pressure, he's been bad. Negative 1.2 EPA. On deep throws, he's been bad. Negative 3.5 EPA on deep throws, which is crazy. Basically giving away a field goal every time that DTR tries a deep throw of 20-plus air yards. He's the worst of the group, but if you're going to play a cheap guy that nobody's going to own, it's probably DTR. Has a little bit of mobility. Cincinnati's pass defense is bad. Really, the overall defense is bad, and we do know they score points on their side, so you could certainly go to DTR if you want to as the lowest owned of the value guys, but I have to warn you, like, everything I'm looking at kind of tells me that he sucks, but shouldn't stop you necessarily for DFS. Shout out the chats. Merry Christmas. Thank you for that. Right back at you. Good morning, Chris. Good luck today. Thank you, Michael Thomas. I appreciate it. You like the bonership on Penix? Thank you for that. Who gets more ownership, Penix or AR? I think it's Devon Valley, Lee. Sorry, our guy Lee last week came out, and honestly, he stood out there with his chest, said it was Devon Valley week. It's never going to leave my brain, unfortunately. But probably AR based on what the ownership projections are. I think people are going to be excited to play Penix, though. So hey, you know what? Better be remembered for something, Lee. That's what I always say. And I appreciate that, Jason. Great work all year. Yes, please show some love. Hit that like button, subscribe, guys. We are in the home stretch. Of course, my videos continue on, including over the holidays, including into the playoffs. But it has been a long year, a year two, where I just cannot stop getting sore throats on the home stretch, thanks to the lovely germs flowing around in a childbearing house. But please subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment. We're on that march to 5K subs. It goes a long way. If you have some time this year or you want to just get some good lineups in down the home stretch of NFL, check out our sponsors too. Stochastic, 15% off. All the data I show you, tools I show you on the screen, get them all for yourself. Of course, unabated as well, $30 off, promo code SPLASH. You want to get better at betting, win yourself some money there to play and probably lose in DFS is how that goes. And Underdog, of course, one of our sponsors who needs to renegotiate with Spags and give him some love. So your help goes a long way here. If you're not an Underdog, $1,000 in bonus cash, promo code SPLASH. And of course, join down below for $4.99 too. All right, nobody else here who's worth talking about in terms of values. Jameer Gibbs, he talked about. Caleb Williams, kind of similar play to these other cheap guys. Bryce Young, cheap play as well. You probably don't want to go to, but people will go there a little bit because they love Jalen Coker, and Jalen Coker is going to play. All right, position by position. Let's go through that. Top projected QBs. You got Josh Allen, who we talked about already. Joe Burrow, again, the push-pull dynamics of Cincinnati, Cleveland. Biggest question for me right now, just not sold that we see enough production from them. That said, Cincinnati, they pass so much. They can get there early on through the pass game, then can load up on Chase Brown after. Certainly ways that Joe Burrow can hit. I just don't expect there to be a game environment. It's going to induce them to have an outlier day. Jaden Daniels, wow, I'm surprised to see that. Jaden Daniels higher projected than Jalen Hurts, despite being a 4.5-point dog at home. If you're going to buy into what I believe about Washington, and you don't have to, I am in the bag for Washington in every possible way. That's been the case since January. For Jaden Daniels, though, this is a spot where I think if you have, as a Commanders team, learned some lessons over the last 15 weeks of football that, hey, we do have to be a little more aggressive. We can't just not throw the ball to guys because they're covered. We can't just run horizontal plays over and over again against a team like Philadelphia. There should be a spot where all the lessons come together, all the learning and the effort and the trial by fire for Jayden Daniels and the Commanders comes together. That would be my hope and I wouldn't say assumption, because I'm not sold that Cliff Kingsbury doesn't donkey this one up. But Jayden Daniels being your number 3 projected QB, I don't think he's going to get played very much. People are going to go back to that last Philly game and think that things haven't changed. I saw it on Twitter too. I follow a lot of the Commander stuff because I want to get all my Commanders beat news as much as possible from the reporters out there. All the tweets are like Commanders fans going like, please don't act like we have a chance here. Like, they're really fucking toxic fan base, by the way. Like, they just are so mad at everything that's not like Jayden Daniels did like a toy for tots thing or whatever, some Christmas thing for kids. And he like on Tuesday, and he's like walking with like a gangsta limp / like really probably a little banged up, whatever. They're like, oh my God, he's limping. Are we going to ever be good? I'm like, oh my God. Like, they're the worst fan base, I think, at least in terms of like the negative Nancyism, especially for a QB that like this is their saving grace. They got the outcome that Chicago fans are hoping for with Caleb Williams. But anyway, point being for Jayden, I think it's a spread here where you're expecting them to be playing from behind, have that mindset throughout. I think with what we've seen from moving Terry McLaurin around, getting more breaking routes going, I think you get a shot here that we see a ceiling game. It's not going to be easy. It's a tough Philadelphia defense. Like, could cite some of the metrics if we want, but it's a team that's really improved in terms of getting to a negative EPAs, negative 0.06 EPA per dropback, one of the better marks in the league, negative 0.07 EPA per pass, one of the best marks in the league, negative 0.08 EPA per rush, one of the better marks in the league. Eagles defense is like legit good now under Vic Fangio, but I think Jayden's worth some tournament flyers. He shouldn't be your core play on the week when you have some obvious value in much softer spots. But I'll play him in tournaments and hope you capture the upside, because that push-pull dynamic, that's really important for DFS. I talk about a lot here in particular for this slate. It's going to be there. Like, Washington's got to put up points against Philadelphia. Maybe the game slogs it out. That last game between them was a little bit defensively minded, but I think Jayden Daniels worth a shot. Similarly, Jalen Hurts, it's possible that like Washington pushes back enough, Philadelphia just kicks their ass. That's a possibility too. So for Jalen Hurts, a little bit less zoned as well. Maybe you don't have to pay all the way up to Josh Allen, but all these guys here, Burrow, Jayden, Hurts, they get you off the tier of the cheap guys, and I think that's sort of their main merit. So Jalen Hurts, obviously we know the deal here. Don't think they passed as much as last week. I feel like they really treated that game like, oh, here's a spot where we shut everybody up because we showed we can pass, the way they talked about in the press conference afterwards. They'll probably pass more moving forward, but it's not going to be like as much of a high over expectation situation as it was last time out, where they clearly had to get that right to shut everybody up, including their own team. So Jalen Hurts, I think, in a good situation overall here, but I'd certainly prefer the shot in Jayden. Can't trust AJ Brown. Okay. Watched a lot of Huskies last year. I can tell you Penix goes deep. There you go. Jesus, I'm not even going to pull that one up, Viking Nomad. It's a really low bar. That's aggressive. If you want to read the chat, Viking Nomad left, you can. I pull up Robert Griffin III's chats all the time. I'm used to there being chats, but Jesus, I don't usually read the chats before pulling them up, and that was tough. AR, top projected despite being so cheap. Again, he's going to come up naturally a lot in the optimizer. That's your QB situation. Let's make up some time on RBs. Spent a little bit too much time luxuriating on my takes. Jahmyr Gibbs, we talked about. Chase Brown, we talked about. Bijan Robinson versus the Giants, I think an okay play, looking maybe less like you're going to get him everywhere play, which is a positive compared to how it looked on Friday. I think compared to him, Chase Brown, compared to James Conner, Chase Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, I'd prefer those guys to Bijan Robinson, but you're paying up to be contrarian. Certainly hard to imagine the Giants really fighting off hard here. I think starting Drew Lock for them is not a good thing. Tim Boyle, for as much as he's not a starting QB either, he at least feeds Malik Neighbors and did a really good job in that second half getting the ball in position to do things, got him a touchdown, got him off the schneid of not scoring since I believe week 3. I'm not sold that Drew Lock can do that. Drew Lock has not shown me anything this year. Really disappointing, honestly, how much he's regressed as a player. If he ever was decent, I don't think he is anymore. And I think he was decent at one point, obviously. But anyway, for Bijan here, decent price tag. You can get there. Really, the Giants are not a good spot to go to. But Bijan can get there no matter what, even if the Giants completely fail. I would just worry about Penix too. I think you get a little bit less checkdowns. He's not going to run a lot to take away the checkdowns, but he is going to try to get the ball downfield more. I don't think RBs were a big part of the Washington pass game last year. Maybe somebody knows the chat better, knows the situation better, will tell me in chat. But I think for Penix, I think you're going to get a little bit less Bijan check down efficiency, but you're going to get more touchdown opportunity from being able to get the ball downfield and get into the red zone. So valid play, but a little bit costly compared to these other guys. Saquon Barkley. Saquon tends to nuke when no one's on him. Yeah, he's not going to come up a lot here. He's more expensive than Bijan and projects less well. ETR's got him even lower. So Saquon, I think, going to be a play that's not a priority. I don't know, though, you're ever going to get, I mean, I don't want to say that like fully. I don't think you get back to where we, like before where we were last week for Philadelphia. Like, I don't think they go back to a spot where it's Saquon just getting the ball so much that the pass game suffers. I think that was something that they have to course correct on. I don't think they pass as much as they did last week, but I just don't think you're going to get the same Saquon run out moving forward. There's some stats floating around to you where Washington's limited RB targets fairly well in the year in a noteworthy way. That's something too. And two for Saquon, the other part of it is like, you're not going to drive Saquon into the ground at this point, like unless he's really like, I got to get their rushing record, and I don't sense that's the case. He just needs to get his 2,000 all-purpose yards, and he's already basically there. To get his bonus, basically, he gets $1 million extra this year, and I think $1 million more in his next year of his deal if he hits that mark. For Saquon, like I just don't think he gets pushed the same way anyway. So you can play him. He probably will be lesser owned for a tournament. But I don't know. I don't have a lot of faith in a ceiling Saquon day. But hey, you know, that's been my take for a while. Wide receiver. Jamar Chase, we talked about Puka Nacua. We talked about Amon-Ra St. Brown, the guy I probably, and if you don't have him in Best Ball Mania / the big board / whatever, probably the guy you want to fail the most this week because he advanced a ton of teams in Jared Goff stacks last week. Jared Goff, according to the ownership out there for best ball players, Jared Goff, one of the chalkiest plays in the week. So you want to see these guys fail if they can versus Chicago. Certainly could be a spot, though, they come out aggressive given the fact they did lose last week. This is a team that responds to stuff like that, tries to put it down. I think for Amon-Ra, I think he's an okay play. I should play him in DFS because I don't have him in best ball, and he will kill my teams if he does go off. I'm not sold you get a ceiling here. I think you got a decent shot of getting 15 to 20. It just doesn't feel like a 30-point spot for me. Chicago's going the wrong way, and I don't think it wants to be there. It's not really where you see Detroit's biggest upside for the pass game. But again, with how they played last week and losing, I think they could certainly come out a little more aggressive here, and it wouldn't be the most shocking thing in the world. Justin Jefferson versus Seattle, not a nut matchup by any stretch. You can go there for sure. I don't feel like it's a Jefferson week, but he's been playing well, playing hot down the home stretch. He probably won't be that owned, so that's kind of the main merit there. Devontae Adams, 7,100. Think he gets owned a good amount here. People will chase that game. Stochastic ownership has it under 15. I think he's closer to 20. I think the people will see that Devontae game is like, especially casual players playing on a Sunday main slate. I think they're going to see that as like one where, man, this guy went off. He's back. He's going to do it. He does crush in the fantasy playoffs seemingly every year. So you can go there if you want. Matchup versus the Rams is not going to scare you. I think he'll be a little bit overowned. Your top tight ends. I think Patrick Taylor's a decent pay down option. The 7K guys do look a lot better. But yeah, Taylor being, close to 5K flat, cheaper than Jerome Ford. I think too, honestly, if DTR somehow doesn't fail, a Jerome Ford, Patrick Taylor line is pretty interesting. The issue for me is I just don't believe in the Niners at this point very much. Same thing for this one, Deebo Samuel, dead cat bounce. Like, no, the workload's pretty bad. I don't love the Niners, though I haven't for most of the year. I think if you are going to go to the Niners, it's more of a George Kittle, Juwan Jennings matchup, zone-heavy team going against them. Those guys do crush versus zone. But again, if those guys move the ball downfield, maybe you see Patrick Taylor clean up some work. But I do think Taylor gets the majority of the workload in that backfield, and I do think they trust him. It's like I talked about enough with the Niners, where you get from RB1 to RB2 to RB3, now to RB4. You're talking about a depreciated role at every step of the way. It's like a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. Each guy gets less red zone work. Each guy gets less pass work. It's not like you're getting McCaffrey or even Jordan Mason at 5K, but you're probably getting a decent play. I'd probably be more inclined to play him in cash, but he won't be owned enough to play him in cash. So he's not a bad play, though. I think Patrick Taylor, people may be sleeping on a little bit. The 20 max, I'll get some. Pretty confident in that. A 150 max, I would definitely get a good amount. If you're putting in one entry, Taylor's probably not my first guy. No issue. And Hunter is correct here. Hit the like button, subscribe. If it's nuts. The channel isn't at 5K. I don't really, subscribers are a vanity metric. I care about the engagement and all that, but I do appreciate you guys hitting that like button, subscribing. And of course, coming back Monday to Friday, 11 a.m. Here on Splash Play NFL. Same thing, Sunday at 9 a.m. my final takes video. And of course, NBA on this at Splash Play NBA channel, different channel for NBA. Checked it out Monday to Friday at 4 p.m. and show some love on that channel, especially because we're trying to build that one up after a couple months of being existing. A baby channel. Go help it out. Your tight ends, Brock Bowers, 18.7 fantasy points. Getting O'Connell in is so huge for him. Jacksonville spot, huge trim as well. Really no issue going there besides the price tag at 6,500. Pretty aggressive price tag. We'll see what the ownership is, but I think you can play him if he's under 10%. If he's over 10, a little bit harder to get there. Did bust his chalk last week, though, so maybe ownership being held in control by the price coming up and busting his chalk. Trey McBride looks pretty good at 6,200. Another player here who should be in the hunt to get a touchdown today. His touchdown markets were at plus 145. I think the 2+ touchdowns at plus 950 is more interesting, just trying to get the full get right spot in one situation. If you see James Conner fail, you're more likely to see Trey McBride get there. So honestly, would be a thing if you're building in the solver, less so in a stochastic sim, but I guess you could just take out James Conner in lineups where you have McBride. I would be inclined to do that a little bit more. If you're not playing Conner, boost McBride, because I do think if Conner doesn't get there, it could be because he came out the 1 yard line because he was tired and they brought in Trey Benson. This has happened enough this year so far for the Cardinals. But I think for Trey McBride, really, it's mostly that for Trey McBride in this spot, if he gets a touchdown, he's going to probably hit his projection anyway or exceed his projection because he hasn't scored a touchdown. The projection is pretty aggressive from where it is. Target share is also pretty aggressive from where it is. Second part of Trey McBride is that if you could stack him up with Marvin Harrison, get fully away from the Conner stack. If somehow Carolina keeps it competitive, I think McBride's a very useful piece in the slate, but he will be pretty chalky at 6,200. George Kittle, 6K flat. Get a good matchup for him versus Miami, competitive spot as well. It's really the big question is, are the Niners good enough at this point? It's a fair question to ask. Jonnu Smith, a little bit hard to pay that rising price tag for him at 5,500, but the workload's been good. Basically, the number 2 receiver on the team besides Tyreek Hill, and everybody from Miami's banged up. Tyreek himself, I think, is a faint shot of not playing. It will likely go, but you have a doubtful Jalen Waddle, I believe is the last I saw. Opportunity to go there for Jonnu, but it's kind of a low total spot for Miami and the Niners. Combined total was under 45. Yeah, it's now 44.5. Not sure it's like a shootout, but you could certainly go to Niners and Miami, and I wouldn't be mad at you for it. Hawkinson, 4,800, decent play, not that far ahead of Laporta. Zach Ertz, concussed shoulder injury, apparently going to play. Drives me fucking nuts. This guy shouldn't be playing. Let Ben Sinnott do something for once. But Zach Ertz going today, and that's that. And defense is really fast here. I don't have a favorite team. I root for money in my takes. Falcons, 9.8 fantasy points. Bills, 9.6. Colts, 8.8. Bengals, 8.7. Vikings, 8.2. So nobody here standing out as a crazy high-value defense. Everybody under a 3X metric. You're going to get these guys pretty evenly. Falcons versus Drew Lock. If you can afford it, great. It's hard to afford a $3,700 defense. Same thing. Bills against Drake May, 3,600. Hard to get there. Colts, 3K. Really none of these stand out. I don't have a favorite cheap D. It's whatever you get in the lineup. I mean, it's always the case for me, but in this week in particular, I don't think any of them are that good of a play, to be honest. Let's go to ownership and see what we have with stochastic ownership here. Of course, ETR, Sims, and optimal lineups coming up in a moment. We'll identify the cash game lineup and the highest projected ones with no variance, and then we'll build some on ETR in a moment / the solver. All right, your top owned plays. Jahmyr Gibbs, now 45% projected ownership. Concentrated workload theoretically for Detroit. Again, there's that risk that we talked about earlier that maybe they just come out, try to put up 50 points just to flex on it's a weird Detroit team where talk about it enough throughout the year. And we've hit on this where they'll have one guy go off the previous week. The next week, they'll try to feed the guys that didn't go off. The Chicago team, we've seen success for Jameson Williams in matchups like Chicago in the past. He does grade out pretty well. I think fantasy points also has him as one of having the best matchups in the league as well, according to their wide receiver coverage tool. So that's sort of the push-pull for Gibbs. That said, you expect him to probably get a touchdown here. Expect him to get some PPR points here. I think the question really is are there players that could beat him for a ceiling outcome? There certainly are, but 45% ownership for Gibbs, I don't think that's wrong. Chase Brown at 28%, James Conner at 21%. I think you could flip these two and it wouldn't be shocking. I think James Conner, given that nut match versus Carolina, I don't think people are afraid of it yet based on my sense from just seeing social media chatter, YouTube chatter, stuff like that. Running backs have failed versus Carolina many times this year now. It's been a good 3-4 times as chalk where the RB doesn't get there. Saquon, most recently, Kareem Hunt before that. Okay. Thank you. Sharing the wrong screen. I appreciate it, Lee. So for James Conner here, I think a higher owned play than you're getting at 7,100, not a play that I'm afraid of by any stretch. Because of the stuff with failing versus Carolina with many RBs, But for Connor here, I think you critique it. You have some obvious ways Connor cannot get there. The pass game, Marvin Harrison does score touchdowns. They seemingly want to get Trey McBride a touchdown to the point Kyler Murray is tweeting about it. So for James Conner in the spot, I would say that he is a play that probably a little bit higher owned, still a good play, even if he's getting a 33% owned. There's a faint chance that the ownership could be totally wrong here and he ends up being 40, 50% owned. I don't know how high that likelihood is. I do think Connor, though, will be a play that coming off a big box score game last week, I think 20% feels a little bit low to me. And I also think Chase Brown at 33-ish or, 30 to 33, that feels a little bit high to me with the price tag coming up. I think that it's Gibbs 1, Connor 2, Chase Brown 3 would be my guess for ownership. But, hey, ownership projections, they're a median, outcome kind of thing. So keep that in mind. Doesn't mean they're wrong, but I think for me, I would guess Connor's number 2 on the week. And again, a shot that I think Connor gets to as highly owned as Gibbs does, but we'll see how that goes. Jacoby Myers, again, you get Aiden O'Connell in. I don't mind him being chalk at 5,800. Certainly would prefer to get to Brock Bowers if you can, but Jacoby Myers has been getting there as well. Most of these spots. Malik Neighbors, surprised to see him be this chalky. I think, again, big box score game last week. I just do not trust the Drew Lock switch at all, is really it. I love Malik Neighbors. I'm going to be relying him a lot in best ball this week. Drew Lock's bad. I don't know. If there were Tim Boyle out there and they could give Drew Lock the hook at some point and put Boyle in, I think that might be a decent probability outcome. I just don't want to see Drew Lock in the field for this. And it feels to me like Calvin Ridley, another guy I'm rooting for in best ball this week. I wanted Will Levis not to play, even though he's one of my finalists or my semifinalist lineups, because it's like he's not as good with Will Levis as he is with Mason Rudolph, where Calvin Ridley is like a top 3 receiver in terms of usage, if not his outcomes. Malik Neighbors, I think, is like potentially a top 10 receiver if you get Tim Boyle, as stupid as that sounds, playing QB for him, because he just is going to give the ball to Neighbors over and over and over again. Drew Lock just can't even get the ball out. He just stands in the pocket and just like gets fucking tackled over and over again. Atlanta sucks, so like I get taking the shot here, but I don't love Neighbors shock, even with the price tag being good. Other guys to highlight, if you're not going to play the run game for Arizona, Chuba Hubbard here after a dead week, chalk bust week, going to him is pretty logical. Buying while there's blood in the streets for that. Trey McBride, 17% for him. Looks pretty good at that ownership. Could be a little bit higher. I think people really will chase him for getting that 1 touchdown. I get it. But, 1 touchdown doesn't mean that he broke the slate. So for Trey McBride, I do think he ends a touchdown streak today. But doesn't mean that he has a great enough game to get there. They might not have to pass a crazy amount. AR, 13% with his high projection at a $5,400 salary. Who else to highlight? Brian Thomas, been having some good games lately. That game could shoot out. I do think there's some appeal to me in going with Aiden O'Connell stacks with Jacoby Myers, with Brock Bowers, running it back with Brian Thomas Jr. Brian Thomas Jr., the main thing for him is that Mac Jones, I still think not a good QB. Brian Thomas getting a ton of breaking routes, using his speed horizontally, which is great for him because he's really fast, really talented at getting downfield. But the big issue for him is that he was just kind of being used to run straight line routes earlier in the year. Now he's running stuff where he's cutting across the entire end zone. Him scoring a touchdown feels pretty good. Him also, I think, having a usable day, but maybe not the same ceiling day we saw last week in play. Do think that for Brian Thomas Jr., that's it. It's not really designing plays for him. It's just using them different. It's the route tree. His routes before were just this, like just posts and goes. Now he's running a ton of in-breaking routes, and in-breaking routes for fantasy are the most important thing for you. Because if you get in-breaking routes, basically that gives you a lot more shot at production, because it's hard to chase guys across an entire field. It's supposed to go in downfield. You have safety help and things like that. So whenever you see a receiver making a kind of a pivot like that, look at that next-gen stats in a given week. They have the route trees. They don't, unfortunately, don't do for every receiver, but you see your guy getting targeted a lot. It's sort of in-breaking horizontal stuff. It's going to be a different usage pattern. And Brian Thomas, I've been using him better and getting able to get the ball more, really, because Mac Jones can't get the ball downfield, but he can get the ball if you're cutting across the field. He kind of plays like there's a bar. You guys know Mega Touch? This might be too esoteric. There's a game that's like in pool halls and bars. It's like one of those games you play. There's a game I used to love called QB Zone in it, where it's like you're a QB and you just kind of point and click the football to get where it has to go. And the receivers just run across like this, like a shooting gallery. That's Mac Jones. Like Mac Jones can make those throws. Once the receiver starts going this way, he can't do it. But if the guy's going like this, just straight across, strafing across the field, you can get there. JSN, 11% ownership. I think DK Metcalf, the more interesting play. I'm glad Lee's played it. Mega Touch games, one of the things that was one of the, I'm surprised actually I never bought one. But like, that was one of my things where I'm like, when I have enough money, one day I'm going to buy a Mega Touch. It's like fucking $5,000, $3,000 to get one. That's too much for a bar game. Anyway, for point being for JSN, DK Metcalf getting some coach speak this week. Wouldn't be shocked to see targets forced his way. And anybody else highlight Marvin Harrison under 6%? DeAndre Swift. Kyron Williams, I'm rooting for in best ball. I think he's a low on part of that Jets-Rams game. If it doesn't shoot out, you probably saw Kyron get a touchdown, maybe two. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 5% ownership. That is a nice tournament play. Might have to play him a little bit to try to get leverage on my best ball semifinals. Breece Hall, probably wouldn't play him, but 6,100. We saw him coming up a lot in the sim last week. Khalil Shakir, probably your most viable Buffalo receiver if you're going to play Josh Allen. He's at 5%. Darnell Mooney, I'll highlight him. Guy who benefits the most, I would think, from Michael Penix. He will be playing that X receiver route, getting downfield. He's probably going to get shots through that prism. Drake London's going to look better too, but like the guy who should gain the most of his normal route usage, I think should be Mooney. He can get there in one or two plays as well. Mooney at 5,400, 5% owned. Very nice play to me. Malik Washington with, did they take out? They took out Waddle, so Waddle not expected to play in the projections. He was downgraded to doubtful. Malik Washington probably the beneficiary, getting slot routes. He's your primary value, I think, on the slate at 3,700. No guarantee he gets there, but he's been pretty good. They do scheme touches up for him. Sometimes some rushing touchdowns he's gotten on the year as well. From Malik Washington, under 5% owned, I think okay. Jordan Addison had some good games. I don't love the Minnesota-Seattle matchup, and maybe it gets there. Ben Sinnott getting screwed by Zach Ertz at 3% now. League's props are so low, not a surprise. Again, I think the game last week going to make people play him a little bit more, but he's not like a guaranteed play. He's not going to get the same Waddle work, and Waddle's work itself, even if he did get it, like that didn't win you anything before that besides 1 or 2 weeks. Terry McLaurin at 2%. Again, people are not going to play him because of the Quinion Mitchell matchup and how bad he did last time versus Philadelphia. I think you take that shot. Amari Cooper instead of Khalil Shakir. If you're going to play Josh Allen, he's lesser owned. And that's that. Here's all your loan guys. You can see them on the screen. Let's go to the solver next, see what we get in here. Let me log in. You can't see my password. Don't guess it. I'm surprised, honestly, nobody's hacked any of my accounts, given the fact you see me logging in way too often on screen. All right, let's build the top 25 lines, find out what our cash game and our observations from the top projections are here with ETR's data. Real fast, too, let's look at ETR projections. So for ETR, the highest projected guys of the week, Josh Allen, Jamar Chase, Jahmyr Gibbs, Chase Brown, three Bengals up top. That is a lot. 3 of the top 5. All right, Bijan Robinson here. So really not too dissimilar from Stochastic, but Burrow a little bit higher projected via ETR data. Top owned plays via ETR. Jahmyr Gibbs, they have it only 35%. Brenton Strange, Stochastic does not have this high. They have him at 30% owned. I think people will chase that game a little bit. Match versus the Raiders, not going to scare you. I don't mind Brenton Strange. I probably don't want a 30% played Brenton Strange. James Conner, 29%. Chase Brown, 28%. Malik Neighbors, 26%. Joby Myers, 20%. This is a lot of ownership. They actually have pretty different numbers than Stochastic does. So you can see him here. That's ETR's data. Credit Mike Leone. He does it all himself, I'm told. Sarcasm, just for those who don't know. Top 25 lineups here, your cash game lineup. If you're going to play one right now, 9:40 or so a.m. here on the East Coast. Anthony Richardson, Chase Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jamar Chase, Malik Neighbors, DJ Moore, Brenton Strange, Michael Mayer. No. He's an okay play. I guess for cash, I get it. Wouldn't play Michael Mayer in a tournament. Raiders D as well. So trying to get the tight end and the defense going against it in this cash game lineup. That's not my favorite cash game lineup I've ever seen. Your top 25 lineup scoring ETR data, you're getting Chase Brown in all of them, Brenton Strange in all of them, Jahmyr Gibbs in all of them. Just one observation right away would be that with ETR users, I think you're going to get Brenton Strange a lot more than Stochastic people do, because they don't have Strange anywhere near that ownership. They have Strange at 13%. Projection for Strange, I think, also a bit lower as well. So, yeah, Brenton Strange, no issue with him as a play. Touted him last week as minimum salary guy. Price tag's up a little bit. You need value on the slate. I get it. Yeah, I don't mind Strange. That's a lot of Strange. All right, let's build 250 lineups here. Let's put on some advanced settings as well. Try to get some stack partners going. Let's put 2 unique players in 2. Let's put in 3. It's big enough slate. Actually, let me pull in my boosts. All right, 3 unique players. Variance on. We're going to build 250 lineups here with ETR's data, sim those out using ETR sims, and see what we get on ETR. And guys, again, if you're getting value out of this video, if you tune in every week, or even if you're just tuning in for the first time and enjoying what you're seeing, and getting something useful out of it, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe. It goes a long way for you. I'm just one guy running 2 NFL channels. When I'm sick, when I don't want to talk, and I really, like, today's one of those days, guys. Still show up and do the work here because that's the commitment I have to what I'm doing, the work that I do here on stream every day. And that's my promise. Whether you take my takes, whether you fade them, do whatever, I'm going to show up and do the work, give you the best work I can every day. And that's the promise here. So please show some love with the like button, subscribe, and of course, join below for $4.99. You get my data for the week as well if you do that. Again, 15% off on Stochastic. Check that out. Promo code SPLASH. That does support the show directly. Really goes a long way if you just use their data or all their Sims tools, whatever you want to get there. Their cheap stuff, their expensive stuff. You all get 15% off with the promo code SPLASH at Stochastic. And unabated, again, $30 off, promo code SPLASH. Solver, if you want to use the tool I'm using on screen right now, link in the description to check that out too. And that's your whoring for now. All right. No, I hear the wife and Luca doing laundry outside. They're getting ready. They got a lot of work to do on a Sunday. We all have work to do on a Sunday. Kid loves helping out with laundry. Thank you for Philly. Appreciate you too. Thank you for being here. Another strange Penix day. There you go. So many 5 and 6K wide receivers. You don't think you need double tight end? You don't need it. That might make it more appealing to play in a given week, but I would agree with you. Definitely receiver a little bit cheaper here, and maybe we're seeing it look a little bit better in terms of upside. Obviously, I don't want to buy in a 1-week trend, but did have the wide receiver smash spots last week, a bunch of them hitting. Could be that time of year, maybe. All right, let's simulate these. Let's go into the slant because they don't build any bigger tournaments in the slant. Let's see what we get in here. So we're going to see the ETR sim. Then we'll head over to Stochastic, look at their sim data, and we'll find out where the overlap is. All right, so right now, your top ROI players, according to ETR data, Tony Pollard, you only get him in 1% of lineups, so not a big stand, but still he does pay off sometimes, it looks like. Jerry Jeudy, 2%, does pay off, 93% ROI. Geno, 1% exposure, 93% ROI. Jordan Addison, barely any exposure, 0 is a technical number, 75% ROI. Jamar Chase, which was the highest owned guys, seems to have the best ROI at 74%. Tyrone Tracy, what? All right, Tyrone Tracy, decent EV on him. Caleb Williams, coming up a lot. Debo, people want the Debo dead cat bouts. ETR wants Debo to hit. That's some of your key observations there. In terms of the top lineups overall, Michael Penix at number 1. I really worry about Penix becoming crazy chalk, but I think the fact AR is there, the fact that O'Connell's there keeps it down. I think there's a shot though that like they have Penix at 18% owned. There's a shot you have more than a third of the field on Penix, AR, O'Connell / whatever other, maybe Drew Lock a little bit, probably more DTR. I like Penix. I don't want an unstacked Penix. This makes no sense too. Anyway, it's unstacked Penix with Jahmyr Gibbs, Tony Pollard, Jamar Chase, Keenan Allen, Wan'Dale Robinson, Jonnu Smith, Deebo Samuel, and Seahawks. This lineup, woo, that's not what I would have thought would have been number 1. I'll tell you that much. Number 2, Aiden O'Connell, Jahmyr Gibbs, Breece Hall, Jamar Chase, DK Metcalf, Deebo Samuel, Brenton Strange, Jacoby Myers, another single stack here. So naked QB at 1, single stack at 2. Seahawks D rounds out this lineup. Michael Penix again at number 3. Penix, Tyrone Tracy. So interesting to note here that you're not getting a lot of that Chase Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, James Conner chalk, these top sim lineups. So trying to move you away from it up top. But Tracy and Patrick Taylor, Jamar Chase, DJ Moore, Drake London, Trey McBride, Deebo Samuel, and Raiders. Geno Smith at number 4. Geno Smith, Chase Brown, Jonathan Taylor, Keenan Allen, JSN, DK Metcalf. So here you're getting a double stack. Hunter Henry. I wonder if that's reflecting a little bit that people are going to overstack the cheap QBs. At least the sim thinks so. Because I ought to see a Geno double, but then like a barely stacked Penix, barely stacked O'Connell. Hunter Henry, Aaron Jones, Bears D. So your number 4 lineup. Number 5, you're getting Aiden O'Connell, Gibbs again, Tyrone Tracy, Jamar Chase, Adam Thielen, Juwan Jennings, Brenton Strange, Jacoby Myers, and Titans D. So really, single stack, double stack, single with Penix, single with O'Connell. You're not getting Bowers up top at all, surprises me. DTR coming in here too. A DTR lineup up top with Gibbs, Chuba, Diami Brown, Jerry Jeudy, Jamar Chase, Trey McBride, Mike Gesicki. See, I got to tell you guys, looking at these lineups, if this is what's going to win, if ETR is right, this is not what I've been thinking in my mind I want to play at all this week. Like I'm not, obviously Gibbs, fine. McBride, fine. Jamar Chase, fine. But like they have Jamar Chase in 4 of the top 5 lineups. I don't think there's any guarantee he crushes today. I'm surprised by that. Caleb Williams team here, getting a lot of Caleb up top. Caleb, Chuba Hubbard, Jahmyr Gibbs, Malik Neighbors, Keenan Allen, Romo Dunze, Trey McBride, Deebo Samuel, Browns D. Any interesting QBs? Here's an AR team. AR naked. I think if you're going to play AR, play him with Josh Downs. But honestly, I would never really want to play a naked QB because you want to capture some sort of correlation there. Help the parlay get easier for you of the team you're playing. AR, you can make the case to me today. Just don't stack them. Maybe play him with Jonathan Taylor. They wouldn't be crazy. But AR, Chuba Hubbard, Tony Pollard, Jamar Chase, Calvin Ridley, DK Metcalf, Brenton Strange, Deebo Samuel, Seahawks. So instead of stacking him with the opponent, you're stacking him with the opposing RB and the opposing wide receiver, which is interesting. Drew Lock team. So really, I will say here, you got to note, no pay up QBs up top. We're getting a Burrow a little bit down here, but you're not getting Hurts. You're not getting Josh Allen. You're not getting my boy Jaden Daniels. You're just getting all the cheap guys. And then Kyler Murray is like the most pay up they're getting at QB. So ETR really does not support you paying up at QB, which does make it kind of an interesting tournament thing to do. If you get that Josh Allen, New England game going off right, it's not going to be as owned as it would be normally. I'll say that. Anyway, if you want a lineup that wins the most, top 1% lineups, Penix lineup here with Trey. I think it's one we already saw. Penix again. Your lineup's finishing up top, the most scoring ETR. Penix, O'Connell, Caleb, O'Connell, Gino. All right, that's that. Let's go over to Stochastic now. Got about 15 minutes left in the show. Let me get to the contest generator. Share this tab. Going to build 10,000 lineups and have them compete 10,000 times on Stochastic now. We'll see what their overall trends are as well. And I'm going to blow my nose too, so bear with me. All right. Feeling great now. Scroll was touting the Scroll Patrol, touting Bengals hard also. I don't think DTR is good enough. I really don't. Maybe they just put out an ass kicking. Maybe they just go nuts. I mean, they do pass a lot. I don't know. I like the Cleveland defense sucks, especially downfield. It's like I'm okay with the concept of it, but that's like they could just win this game entirely on Chase Brown's back. That's sort of what I would worry about. But whatever. Let's see. Don't think pricing reacted enough to Philly's Phoenix-like explosion last week. That's fair. That's fair. Again, I still think that was a 1-week kind of flop flag. I think it'll still be a thing. They pass more than they did before. But I don't think they're going to come out trying to pass as aggressively. Like, again, how much they talked about that, where like legit Jalen Hurts sat down the press conference is like, did you guys think we passed enough now? Or like shut up. I fucking hate the Eagles. I really do. Let's run this one. 33% to first place. Let's see what we get. I think they're just like, I know people love Saquon. I get it. And I like Jalen Hurts. Like, I like the offense. I like them as players. But like, they just find ways to annoy me every week. Like, between the fucking coach and Sirianni yelling on the sidelines, like, you guys should be fucking in good spirits now. It's been a good year for them. I think they fall apart in the playoffs, but we'll see. Defense is too good. Offense is also too good. And the Bengals don't throttle the Penix as hard as when they boat race teams. Thank you. Die, Eagles, die. It's more aggressive stand than I have, but sure. You have a man-child running the show. That's what you get, Sirianni. Yeah, I mean, that was the reports in the offseason, was that Jalen Hurts doesn't like Sirianni not being enough of a pro, enough of a serious guy. I honestly, for them, wouldn't mind if they flame out in the wild card. You just fire Sirianni and see what you can get for a ceiling outcome. But they are one of the teams that I think if they do bust in the playoffs this year, I think they were most live to hire Belichick, and now obviously that option's gone for at least one season. Those buyouts and bullshit. You get out for cheap next year. Obviously, can't get out now. You have to pay like 20 mil to get out now, Belichick. All right. Let's see what our results are here. Come on. Give me those sweet results. We're not going to look at every QB today just because I do want to get out of here at 10 o'clock because I know there's a lot of other content people want to watch. We'll look at some of the key QBs. If you have QB requests, drop them in the chat. We'll get there whenever I look at the overall first. Then we'll look at some lineups. If you're leaving the stream, don't do that. I have to run the sims in real time, guys. You get to see what the real products are here. That's always the goal in the stream. Of course, you want to use stochastic products yourself. Going to be definitely a thing you need, I think, heading into the playoffs, especially when you get smaller slates. So check it out. 15% off. Link in the description for that. Aiden O'Connell, your number one QB option here. Number one ROI lineup. O'Connell with Jerome Ford, DeAndre Swift. So getting weird at RB here as well. Tyreek Hill, Brian Thomas Jr., Jacoby Myers, Brock Bowers, George Kittle, Bears D. Number two is Brock Purdy, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jerome Ford, JSN, Juwan Jennings, Jalen Coker, Trey McBride, George Kittle, Browns D. Number three is Aiden O'Connell, Jonathan Taylor, Chuba Hubbard, Puka Nacua, Jacoby Myers, David Moore, Hunter Henry, Brock Bowers, and Colts. So one key difference between ETR and Stochastic is like they were not giving you Bowers in your top Aiden O'Connell lineups. Here in Stochastic, they're basically saying you need him to hit a ceiling. Number four, you have Tua Tagovailoa, Jahmyr Gibbs, Chuba Hubbard, Puka Nacua, Tyreek Hill, Malik Washington, Johnny Smith, triple stack. Michael Mayer gets in here too. I do not buy the Mayer stuff. Raiders D. And number five is Matthew Stafford, Bijan Robinson, Jerome Ford again, Puka Nacua, Juwan Jennings, DK Metcalf, Sam Laporta, Brenton Strain, Seahawks. So you're seeing more Jerome Ford with stochastic data. Less Jamar Chase by a wide margin. There's going to be, this has been the case for a lot of weeks lately, and it's like, it used to never be the case. Usually ETR and stochastic be pretty close to 1-to-1. This week, again, I think you're going to see different lineups coming out of ETR and the solver than you will via stochastic. They're just not favoring the same players the same way. Like, you're getting Gibbs a good amount on both, obviously. But even the cheap guys, you're getting Ford here. We got like no Ford on ETR. You're getting, Patrick Taylor a little bit more. You were getting, who else was the other cheap guys? Getting Tyrone Tracy, getting Madison, Tony Pollard. Here you're getting Jerome Ford as your cheap option. Highest ROIs, any love for Odunze? Not really. You can play it if you want. I think really, to me, they've shown a real will to get Keenan Allen the ball. That could certainly flip down the home stretch, I guess, like Keenan Allen's motivation. I'm surprised he's been playing as hard as he has over the last couple weeks, especially. I still think Allen's the main guy there, and Moore projects well. People want to flag plan. I mean, the ETR guys did it every week for a while as a bit. He had the one game, but it wasn't even an impressive game when he had 2 touchdowns. I'm not really there until they clear out one of the receivers, but you can take a shot. Nothing wrong with it. It's just not for me. Colts D, your number one ROI player right now at 3K. So you want a pay down option. That's that. Stochastic ownership been kind of bad lately. I think the industry has been a little bit off lately because they haven't been able to capture like how much people want to play the Derrick Henrys and Saquons. Look, I eyeball stuff pretty aggressively. That's always been my thing. And I think if you view projections and just kind of get to the point of viewing them as like you do a regular projection, where it's like a projection means that 50% of the time the guy's going to go under, the other 50% of the time the guy's going to go over. Ownership, kind of the same thing. You should eyeball stuff a little bit more. And if you wanted to kind of manipulate, if you really know what you're talking about, you go here in the projections and manipulate the ownership here to try to get the sim to more accurately reflect what you're doing. But to me, the biggest thing that I think they have wrong this week is just that I think they're low on James Conner a little bit too much. I think he'll be about, as I mentioned, about a third of the field will be there. We doing shows throughout the playoffs? Yep, that's the plan. I keep going when everybody else stops. That's always been my thing here that I think adds the most value. So through the Super Bowl, still be doing DFS shows. And of course, our big board stuff / 2025 prep coming up in a couple weeks as well. A lot of Raiders don't trust AOC enough. They're playing the Jags. Got to keep that in mind. If they can make Aaron Rodgers put up 30 fantasy points, that's kind of says it all to me. Aiden O'Connell, though, 6% ROI for him. Your number 2 ROI guy. Raiders D. Mac Jones hasn't been that bad, but you can take the shot. 4% ROI for them. Raiders defense, that is, at 2,700. Jacoby Myers, 3% positive ROI. Brock Bowers rounded up 3. Jeremy Ruckert, 2.4%. I'm not crazy about the Ruckert play, but he's 2,600. I get it. Michael Pittman, 2%. Josh Downs, 2% ROI. George Kittle 1.4%, and Jalen Coker 0.5%, and Calvin Ridley a flat 0. Did mention Ridley on the Friday video. I'll highlight it one more time. When Mason Rudolph played QB for those 3 weeks that Levis was banged up / he kind of didn't want to play him, he was one of the best fed receivers in football, led the league in first read targets overall, was up there in air yards as well, just like killed it when it was Mason Rudolph before. So Ridley getting fed today. I don't know if he hits a ceiling, but he's going to get fed. Or he should get fed. QB +1 stacks. Anthony Richardson, your only positive ROI guy at 0.5%. Everybody else negative. QB +2 stacks. Aiden O'Connell is a 19% ROI. AR is going to 9% one. And QB's +3. You have Tua at 18%. Aiden O'Connell, so triple stacks the Sims like a lot this week. Aiden O'Connell, 15.4% ROI. That is in a triple stack. Michael Penix 13.4% in a triple stack. Michael Penix. Somebody's going to make that mistake when announcing his name at a game this year. Probably the red zone guy. Probably Scott Hansen's going to be like, let's go see what Michael Penis says. Oh, Penix. Oh, that's what he's going to say. Brock Purdy. If I had to place odds on who's going to say penis first, Scott Hansen's it. Brock Purdy, 13% ROI for him. Anthony Richardson, 10% ROI for him. Bryce Young, 10% ROI for him in a QB +3. I don't know that you want to triple stack that, but I guess it'd be Chuba, Thielen, Coker. I could live with that, I guess. Arizona's defense, not that good. I feel like their defense does kind of beat up on shitty teams, so what version of Carolina gets, they will matter a lot for that. Caleb Williams, 3%. Aaron Rodgers, 1%. No big stands there. Exposures overall. You're getting 55% Jahmyr Gibbs compared to the field's 45%. So stochastic Sims think he's good chalk. You're getting 43% Jacoby Myers compared to 18% for the field. That's a really big stand on Myers. More than 2x the exposure on Jacoby Myers. Brock Bowers, 35% compared to 12%. So almost triple the exposure on Brock Bowers. So again, Raiders stacks. Stochastic Sims absolutely love Raiders stacks. I do too. Again, with the Brian Thomas bring back, going to be owned though. Raiders D, a lot more of them than I would have thought, 30% compared to 12%. Playing them without the offensive players would be more appealing to me. Just because you're trying to get them not a shootout. Mac Jones fucks up enough that Aiden O'Connell doesn't have to pass quite as much. Still wouldn't play a Raiders RB with it, but Raiders D, that's a lot of Raiders D. Puka Nacua, 30% compared to 12%, so they like him as a pay-up option at receiver. A lot more than Jamar Chase, it seems. Seems like Stochastic likes Puka Nacua. ETR loves Jamar Chase a little bit more. Chuba Hubbard, 30% compared to 17% for the field. I think Chuba ends up a little bit lower owned than that, but I think 30% field's fine for me. Again, buying after he failed his chalk last week, always going to be logical. And then Chase Brown getting 30% compared to the field's 27%. So really, they're buying in on Gibbs, buying in on Chuba, buying in on Chase Brown. Where are they on James Conner, our other obvious chalk? Wow. Fading James Conner, 3% Conner compared to 21% for the field. Oops, that's not how we spell Patrick. You're not getting any Patrick Taylor at all. Because you're getting Jerome Ford almost 3x the field. All right. Did not expect the big Connor stand here. Anti by Stochastic. That's what you're getting. Your highest leverage plays right now. You got 25% Jacoby Myers leverage on him. Again, we talked about him already. Brock Bowers, 23% leverage on him. Aiden O'Connell getting almost a third of your lineups. The field's 9%. So they are just loading up on Aiden O'Connell right now. Raiders D, 18% more. Puka Nacua rounded up 18% more. George Kittle, 16% more. Josh Downs, 15% more. Your most under-leveraged guys, James Conner, really big fade on James Conner. Jamar Chase, big fade on him as well. So that is one ETR. And Stochastic people are just going to be on at loggerheads playing that one today. Devontae Adams getting less than him, getting only 1% compared to 10%. Again, I think Devontae Adams gets closer to 20, would be my guess. Bengals D, negative 9%. DJ Moore, negative 7%. It's weird. It's like the Stochastic sim is directly fading ETR. But anyway, Adam Thielen, negative 6%. T. Higgins, negative 6% ROI. So just fading the Bengals offense overall is Stochastic, which again, ETR says to play that. So who do you trust more, I guess is the question. Okay. If you're going to go with the Sims, it would be the Raiders. I don't know that I buy that, but that's what we're getting the most here. I really don't care though. Play whatever defense sits at a price point. There's really nothing. There's no good defense, I think, on the week really. Besides, Atlanta, I guess, going against your lock, but that's too expensive. Okay, QBs. If you have any requests, drop them in here. Otherwise, I'm just going to look at a few that I find interesting. Let's look at the cheap guys. Let's look for some Penix lineups. All right, you got Michael Penix with Jahmyr Gibbs, Jerome Ford, QB +1 stack here. Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, Darnell Mooney. Again, Mooney, I think, a really good play at his price point. Jeremy Ruckert, Brock Bowers, Raiders D. Number 2 is Penix with Bijan, DeAndre Swift, Drake London, Ray McLeod. I don't think Ray McLeod and Penix play the best there. That we did feed Jalen McMillan in a similar role at UW, so maybe. Calvin Ridley, Brock Bowers, Brian Thomas Jr. Bears. Titans D, not a bad call either because you're getting direct leverage on a decent amount of AR ownership, so that's not bad. All right. Penix again at number 3. Penix, Gibbs, Hubbard, Puka Nacua, Drake London, Michael Pittman, Trey McBride, Jeremy Ruckert, and Colts. Instead of looking at QBs real fast, I'm just going to see what does it look like if you play chalk RBs because they don't seem to want to give you the chalk RBs. Lineup contains Gibbs. And lineup contains Chase Brown. And you know what? Let's see what happens if we put lineup contains Connor. So 3 RBs. Stochastic doesn't like it that much. I would play this though. Again, one thing I'll highlight, and it's not, for sim products, you could feel free to take the highest ROI lineups. Like that is technically what you should do. Utical, though, one of the best DFS players in the world, has said like if he's building stuff and he feels confident in it, he almost wants to see the sim ROI after a contest, like looking at the post-contest sims, to be closer to 0% because he doesn't want the sim to think like it's a great play. Because if the sim thinks it's a great play, you have every user of the site basically trying to play it. So these lineups here, I don't mind being this kind of, still a positive ROI, but not quite as high. Anyway, you're getting AR with Chase Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, Michael Pittman Jr., Josh Downs, Kendrick Bourne. That's a little bit iffy. George Kittle, James Conner, and Colts. Still don't mind the lineup. You got AR with Chase Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, C. Higgins, Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, Michael Mayer, James Conner, and Raiders. At number 3, Aiden O'Connell with Chase Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, Debo, Jalen Coker, Trey Tucker, Brock Bowers, James Conner, and Niners. So a little bit tough for these lineups. Penix with Mooney I could have done. That's not that. Why Jersey Ruckert? Why Jeremy Ruckert? Because you don't have A, he's 2,600. B, you don't have, what's his face not in. Tyler Conklin not in again, so that's why. McMillan going to moon the game. I don't know that I would chase that, but sure. That's also a Sunday night game. That's not the main slate on DraftKings. Any thought on why the stochastic sims are down on Connor? A lot of ownership. He doesn't project that well. Usually the reasons why. All right, people asked about a Rodgers lineup. Again, really think you're not being sneaky with this one. Again, it won people Millie Maker last week. It won the Fantasy Football Championship. People are going to chase it. But Aaron Rodgers, only one of the top 150, so maybe it won't come up a lot naturally in the sim. Rodgers, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jonathan Taylor, Devontae Adams, Garrett Wilson, DK Metcalf, Jeremy Ruckert, Debo Samuel, and Colts D. Number 2, you have Rodgers, Chase Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, Devontae Adams, Garrett Wilson, DK Metcalf, Hunter Henry, Jeremy Ruckert, Bengals D. At number 3, you have Rodgers, Jahmyr Gibbs, Chuba Hubbard, Jamar Chase, Devontae Adams, Juwan Jennings, Jeremy Ruckert, Bretton Strange, and Jets D. I think this lineup, most appealing. I don't know that I need Jeremy Ruckert to come along for the ride, though. Like, I feel like if you're playing Adams and Garrett Wilson, that's probably enough. I don't think Rodgers can sustain 3 QBs. Somebody asked for a Mason Rudolph line. All right, positive ROIs here. 2 in the top 150. Mason Rudolph, Jahmyr Gibbs, Chuba Hubbard, Malik Neighbors, Jacoby Myers, Calvin Ridley, Sam Laporta, George Kittle, and Giants D. Mason Rudolph, Chase Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, Puka Nacua, Michael Pittman, Calvin Ridley, Ruckert, Jacoby Myers, and Raiders D. Number 3 here, Mason Rudolph, Jonathan Taylor, Chuba, Puka Nacua, Malik Neighbors, Calvin Ridley, Chigga Conquo, DK Metcalf, Giants. That's a fun lineup. Getting different at RB, direct leverage on James Conner. Another reason, too, you're getting less Conner, I think, is that you're getting more Chuba Hubbard than expected. But you're getting basically, you just need a Mason Rudolph double the hit with the 2 most obvious culprits that should hit. So That's sort of always an appealing stack to me when you just have to like pay down a QB and only a kind of simple double stack has to hit. That worked out with Caleb Williams a while back. I pointed that out. Worked out with Russell Wilson a while back. That worked out. Happens enough here. Let's see. Somebody, dude. If you don't know that Kirk Cousins got benched, man, you might not want to play DFS. You're like, that's not a good one. Let's see. Gino line. Somebody asked for a different one. Hold on. Caleb stacks. Let me get the paying members first. QB contains Caleb. Can't promise I'm going to hit all of them, guys, because I want to wrap up here in a moment. Caleb with Chase Brown, DeAndre Swift, DJ Moore, Calvin Ridley, Keenan Allen, Sam Laporta, Brock Bowers, Bengals. Number 2, Caleb Williams, Chuba Hubbard, DeAndre Swift, Michael Pittman, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Trey McBride, Tyreek, and Colts. What is it? The Bears just going to kick the ass of Detroit here? I don't see that. Number 3, we have Caleb Williams, Chase Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, Puka Nacua, Adam Thielen, Keenan Allen, Hockenson, Mayer, and Raiders. Again, don't love Mayer as a play, but a Caleb single stack with Keenan Allen makes sense to me. Like, I don't know that he's creating a doubles value. You might need to hit a double to actually win you $1 million, but that's that. Josh Allen. Hey, fuck off. Honestly, if you don't know Kirk Cousins isn't playing, I don't really care about your takes. You're a moron. Just don't come back. Don't fucking call me an asshole because you're an idiot. Fucking know the thing you're gambling. That's the most important thing you should be doing. You don't need to know every wide receiver 3 or whatever. But if there was a fucking ESPN alert that went out and one of the biggest news stories of the week, don't fucking talk shit to me because you're a moron. Fucking dipshit. Gino line. Only going to grab 1 or 2 more here, guys. Especially when that's the vibe. Fucking retard. Sorry, I don't use the R word anymore, but Jesus Christ, dude. Like you might have won money because you're lucky and an idiot. I'm guaranteeing you're going to give it back this week if you don't know Kirk Cousins isn't fucking playing. Geno Smith, Chase Brown, Kyron Williams, Malik Neighbors. It's like the fucking guy the other day where he's like, well, I don't know, that Rams game went under, so like this one's going to go over. And like it goes over and the guy fucking talks shit. It's like, my God, lucky. Being lucky is okay. Geno Smith, Chase Brown, Jerome Ford, DK Metcalf, JSN, Jacoby Myers, Dalton Kincaid, Brian Thomas Jr., Seahawks. I bet bread for him too was like $200, which no disrespect if that is your thing, but like don't come in a chat and be arrogant because you fucking finished 10th in the quarter. And that might even be aggressive for that guy. Number 3, Geno Smith, Jahmyr Gibbs, Chuba Hubbard, JSN, Jacoby Myers, DK Metcalf, Trey McBride, Noah Fant, and Raiders. And I get it. You want Josh Allen. You get Josh Allen. Be a paying member and you'll get it faster. I don't know what to tell you. Josh Allen, last but not least, and then I'm done for the day. Cousins out. That's true. Devon Valley does benefit the most from Kirk Cousins not playing. At least Lee knows what he's fucking talking about. Like, if you come in here and you know what you're saying and you're like a person that presents themselves as smart, you could give me a dumb shit take. I'm gonna make fun of you for it, but I'm not gonna like fucking think you're a complete idiot. If you don't know that Kirk Cousins isn't playing and you're playing DFS, you just need to fucking do another hobby. Just go fucking work on your lawn. Go make snowballs. Go make snowmen, the local neighborhood kids, because I'm sure you don't have children of your own. I hope not. I hope you're not procreating. Josh Allen, Jahmyr Gibbs, Alexander Madison, Khalil Shakir, Juwan Jennings, Diami Brown. Diami Brown I just don't ever want. Trey McBride, Dalton Kincaid, Raiders. Double quote-unquote elite tight end here. Josh Allen double, no bring back. Look, I get not having New England bring back. I think I said it on the paid video, the premium video on Friday. If you're doing a Josh Allen stack, I think Ramondre, like you got to have somebody scoring points for New England. I get not wanting the pass catchers. You could play Hunter Henry if you wanted, but I think that's going to be the most obvious approach. I think I'd play Ramondre with a Josh Allen build because at least there it's like Patriots got lucky, got a touchdown early. Josh Allen maybe got stopped a couple drives. I don't know how the Josh Allen stack really hits without the Patriots doing something to make a lineup. Josh Allen, Jamar Chase at number 2, Jerome Ford, Brian Thomas Jr., Khalil Shakir, Calvin Ridley, Dalton Kincaid, Jeremy Ruckert, and Jags. It's okay. Josh Allen, Chuba Hubbard, DeAndre Swift, Malik Neighbors, Khalil Shakir, Jacoby Myers, Daniel Bellinger, Johnny Smith, Raiders. I will say for playing a Josh Allen team, I think a shot at Amari Cooper after he got zeroed last week wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world. But that's that. Splash plays help me in NBA and NFL. Thank you for your hard work. Thank you, S. Mitch. I appreciate it. All right. I think that's it. I think we got all the requests in chat, and I'm not taking any more, right? Maybe else that I care. Oh, Purdy. We got one more in chat, and that's it. Then we're done. And then you can go watch other content. You watch people are going to be much more polite to you when you wonder, is Kirk Cousins playing? What happened here? If you're not going to do the work on your end, that's how that is. Brock Purdy, Jahmyr Gibbs, you got to come in here. It's like fucking wanting to get clean as an addict. You got to come in wanting to do the work here. If you're not aware of who starting QBs are, just don't come into the chat. That's what I would say. Brock Purdy, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jerome Ford, JSN, Juwan Jennings, Jalen Coker, Trey McBride, George Kittle and Browns, Brock Purdy, Chuba Hubbard, DeAndre Swift, JSN, Josh Downs, Calvin Ridley, George Kittle, Juwan Jennings, Seahawks. If you're going to play Brock Purdy, getting that Kittle, Juwan Jennings double, I think is the move. Nothing too hot there, but like legitimately this matchup does portend pretty well. Miami plays a lot of zone. Kittle and Juwan Jennings have been much better versus zone than versus man. So these Purdy doubles, I don't mind. Purdy, Chuba, DeAndre Swift. Like the Swift part of it, I'm just not there. Jamar Chase, Malik Neighbors, Juwan Jennings, Jeremy Ruckert, Kittle, and Bears. All right, that's it, guys. Splash plays for the day. Probably Jaden Daniels, Terry McLaurin. That's the low-owned one to take. Before we hit our splash plays of the day, guys, please make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. Just go a long way for me. Again, I do the work here every day. I come in prepared. I know everything I possibly can about a slate. That's what I'm trying to give you here. If you show up and you come in bright-eyed and bushy-tailed with some good takes, you're going to look really good in chat. If you come in not knowing that Kirk Cousins got benched, I think less of you. That's it. But I'm a normal human being here just doing this shit every day, and I do it well. Underdog, $1,000 in bonus cash, promo code SPLASH. Stochastic, 15% off, promo code SPLASH as well. Check the link in the description too if you want to see all their packages. Get a read on what's affordable, what's not for you, but really do check that out. It supports the show and it'll make you a better DFS player, and you'll maybe know when players are playing and when they're not if you use their projections. Unabated, $30 off. You want to build your bankroll in other sports, especially NBA. Use your custom projections to get some good results on there. And the Solver too. And shouts all the paying members. I guess splash plays of the day here. I mean, look, I think the chalk RBs are good. I think it's Darnell Mooney is one that stands out to me. That's a little bit tough because like he might not get the PPR points. The floor might not be there quite as much. I think it's a tournament play at 5% owned. I just think stylistically, he's the one who should benefit the most from Penix being out there. I think he's got a good shot getting a touchdown today. I also like Penix double stack still. The fact we're getting him naturally on ETR, we're getting him a ton with Stochastic either. I think I like Penix. I want Penix in every hole, in every lineup. That's what I'm looking for. Besides that, who would I have a really strong feel for this week? I don't know. I mean, I like the chalk RBs more than Stochastic does. Like I like Chase Brown, like Jahmyr Gibbs, like James Conner. Yeah, I don't know, guys. It's a lot of things I'm going to play on the slate. It's the main thing I'm going to say right now. I don't think there's any one play where I'm like, got to get this guy in every lineup. I'm going to try some different looks, try some different things. Even the Brock Purdy stacks we looked at, I think have a merit. So I know it's not the best answer here, but like this slate, there's a lot of gross slates we've had lately where it's like, what do you even play? Here you have so many options to play. I think that's the tough part. But I would say Mooney is the one that I feel the best about relative price point, matchup, and all of that. But there we go, guys. That's it for me today. Go check out whatever content you want. Come back tomorrow for the showdown slate. Of course, I'll show up here at 11 a.m. doing the work as always. I appreciate you guys being here. Of course, make sure to gamble responsibly, especially if you don't know who the QBs are. They're starting a given week. Even though it is always money time here. Follow me at Chris Spags. Follow the show at Splash Play Pod. Back tomorrow with more. Enjoy your days, guys. Good luck in best ball too. Fucking fingers crossed for that one. I'll see you guys again soon. Good luck. Bye-bye.